Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Finders Keepers doesn't work for horses, no matter how much you love them. After that, school VP says you can take us to court, and my father did. And after that, supermarket Karen demands my bread, then lies to staff about me. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to take someone's horse. Oh, I'll find a way. I always do. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Finders Keepers doesn't work for horses, no matter how much you love them. So this was several years ago, but another story made me think about it. I used to show my horses at a local fairground sometimes. Nothing fancy, just some local open shows, mostly western and barrels/poles. I have a big bay gelding, Dio, who gets lots of compliments for how striking he looks. He's well known around the other regular show attendants. He's not registered or even purebred, kind of just a horse of unknown mixed, vaguely quarter horse-ish heritage, so not particularly high dollar, just pretty. He also is the horse equivalent of a golden retriever, absolutely loves everybody, especially if they give him a little attention. While I was in the ring showing another one of my horses, Dio was standing at our trailer in the lot. I had a friend at a trailer nearby and was kind of keeping an eye on him for me, but she was working inside her trailer when, supposedly, Dio got loose. I came back a bit later as she was stepping out and Dio was nowhere to be found. We asked around and a couple of us spread out around the lot looking for him. No one had called out about a loose horse or seemed to have noticed him, until my friend and I heard a bit of a ruckus a few rows down. Someone struggling to load their horse. See, Dio loves people and he loves food, but he really hates getting into small trailers. First off, he's a big guy and really doesn't fit that well. And second off, he's always had some issues getting into trailers. We have a procedure and a big roomy trailer, so he loads okay for me. A few rows down from our trailer, a woman and her daughter are trying to load this suspiciously familiar big bay gelding into an itty-bitty two-horse trailer next to another horse, and neither horse was having it. Just when we showed up, Dio yanked back and sort of half-reared up, pulling the rope away from the woman. Me, having some trouble loading that horse? Entitled Mom. Oh, he just gets like this, really wound up after having shows all day. You know barrel horses. Me. Well, I think it's probably more of a problem if he doesn't load well, especially into strangers' tiny trailers, since he doesn't run barrels. What? What stranger? My friend. That's her horse you're trying to steal. I think she'd know better. Entitled Mom. What? No, he's ours. We found him. Me. You found him? At a trailer? No, he was just running around loose, so we caught him. Me. And how does that make him yours? Entitled Mom, getting huffy. Well, no one was looking for him, so you obviously don't care about him. My daughter loves him and wanted a horse to run barrels on. Me. Well, your daughter's going to be sorely disappointed, because I raised him and care quite a lot about him, and also, he doesn't run barrels. He's terrified of them. Entitled Daughter. I don't care. Jack is the horse I've always wanted. Mom, we have to get him. Well, fine. How much do you want for him? Is $200 enough? Me. He's not for sale, and he's not named Jack. I'm going to take him back to my trailer now. Bye. Another one of my friends had caught him by now and was handing his rope over to me. I'm 100% ready to just walk away from this headache. Entitled Daughter. No, Mom. You can't let her take Jack away. No, you're not. Give that horse back to my daughter. Me. Nope. There was some more arguing while I walked away. My friend got really fired up and started yelling. Maybe a half an hour later, the lady came storming up to my trailer with some poor deputy in tow. That's him. That's my daughter's horse. She's stealing my daughter's horse. I'll let you imagine the details of that encounter. But supposedly, I had stolen this horse right from their trailer. I showed the cop a handful of pictures of us together on my phone, including one I had from when he was just a foal. And a few friends/acquaintances that were nearby and knew me attested that, yeah, Dio was in fact my horse. We also relayed the whole debacle to the officer, and my friend kept insisting we should press charges. Maybe I should have, but I just wanted to load up my horses and go home by then. We also mentioned the other horse, kind of worried it might have been found too. and he said he would check on it. The deputy then went off and talked to the other woman and her daughter. It didn't look like a fun conversation for him. After a bit, he came back and assured us that the other horse seemed to be theirs. She had pictures. He took down some of my info, and if we wanted to leave, we could. And so we did. Dio walked right into our trailer with minimal fuss. A friend of mine that stuck around longer told me later that she had seen the girl outright sobbing and yelling at her mom. Have you ever ridden a horse? And if not, would you like to? Please let us know. You look like a horse, Reddit boy. School VP says you can take us to court, and my father did. This incident took place in India in the early 90s. The school where my sister and I had studied was in my hometown. We knew almost all the teachers since they were practically our neighbors. When it came to the time I graduated from school, the principal had retired and the vice principal took over as the principal. The vice principal was also from the same town and for some unknown reason had some sort of grudge against my father. In local gatherings, etc., he would always try to belittle my father at all chances he could get. My father would normally let it pass since he knows that getting into silly arguments with such a bully is totally unproductive. When my sister and I had joined the school, my father was required to pay a refundable deposit of $5,000 per kid, which would be returned back at the time each kid graduated from the school. 10,000 rupees in the 90s was a large amount and is equivalent to 95,000 rupees of the present time. I graduated in 1989. When my father inquired about the refund, the VP had informed him that since my sister would be graduating in 1 year's time, both the deposits would be returned together. So when my sister graduated from school, my father requested the school to refund both the deposits. There was no response, even after 2 weeks, and my father personally went to the school to demand the refund. The VP, being the egotistical bully, started arguing with my father, stating that the school can't refund the deposits. The argument became very heated, and he outright refused point blank and said, "We are not returning the deposits. Do what you can. You can take us to court if you want." My father went silent, got up, and left the school. Came home, sat down with mom, went through all the school-related documents she had kept. My mother had a very meticulous documentation system. She used to save every receipt, bill, stub, etc. He found the receipts for the deposits. He took them to his lawyer friend. My dad informed his friends, whose kids were in the same school, about the issue. The lawyer filed the case and took the school to court. The school couldn't provide any reason for withholding the deposits and fighting with the parents. My dad won. The school was instructed to pay back the deposits with interest and the court dues. My father's friends who were in the PTA took up the issue in the subsequent PTA meeting and got the school's trustee board to ensure that such issues won't be dealt with in the same manner and all deposits will be refunded in time, and strictly warned the VP not to bring any personal grudges into school business. Other parents who were owed deposits but had forgotten about it started to claim them. Cost the school a lot to pay back the deposits. Supermarket Karen demands my bread, then lies to staff about me. Okay, so this just happened, and it may be the most cliched Karen encounter I've ever had. Obligatory apologies for any formatting issues. I'm posting this from my phone because I want to write it all out before I forget any details. My flatmate/BFF has sensory issues and thus strict preferences when it comes to food. I do our grocery shopping each week. He works full-time while I'm disabled and unable to work, so I do what I can to keep the workload fair, especially since he's also my carer, and also get him these same damper bread rolls with no seeds. They're the softest bread available, and it's not unusual for me to get the last one on the shelf of a Friday, which was what happened today. I should also add that my genetic disorder, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, means that my skin doesn't age normally. So while I'm turning 32 this year, I'm often mistaken for anywhere from 17 to 25 years old, depending on the situation and how I'm dressed. Not even half a minute after I'd put the rolls in my trolley, I heard a woman behind me doing that inhaling through her teeth sound, followed by an "ah." I turned around and was greeted by the sight of a super stereotypical Karen in every sense, except for her hair, which was past her shoulders, but still straight and blonde with badly done stripy highlights. She had the 2 sizes too small yoga pants and workout top with way too much gold jewelry. She was also wearing sunnies inside the supermarket. With that simpering, wincing expression on her orange face, she said, "I'm so sorry about this, love, but I'm going to have to ask you to give me that bread." I couldn't fight the instinct and immediately burst out laughing. The whole scenario was just too much for me. Karen, hand on hip.
What the heck's so funny?
Me. Well, you must be joking, right?
There's no need to be so rude. Give me that bread now, or I'll be having words with your parents.
Me, bristling at being spoken down to yet again. You're not having my bread, Karen. Leave me the heck alone. And I walked away. I heard huffing and stammering behind me, but just ignored it and carried on with my shopping. I thought that was it, but of course, Karen needed to try and put me in my place, as I'm sure she'd have said it. She showed up several aisles later with a member of staff. But here's the thing, I'm a disabled woman who shops for the same exact things on the same days every week, and I've had to ask staff for help on plenty of occasions. Many of the staff at that supermarket know me fairly well, so when Karen showed up with Janelle, fake name, pointing aggressively at
that little jerk right there,
me, she was probably quite surprised when Janelle said, "Oh, hi OP, you're a bit later than usual today, aren't you? Everything okay?" Me, "Yeah, it's just been one of those days, you know?" Karen interjecting,
"That's the thieving brat who stole that bread right out of my trolley and refused to give it back."
Janelle, side-eyeing Karen, "Is that really what happened, OP?" Me, "Actually, I literally just got to the shelf first. Karen here demanded I give it to her, and I guess she didn't know how to handle being told no. I'm sorry you've had to waste your time like this."
Karen, "She's lying. Where are your parents, you little jerk?"
Me, "How about we just review the security footage and clear this up, so we can all get on with our days?" Janelle, "That won't be—" Karen to Janelle, cutting her off.
"Excuse me? Are you calling me a liar? I have never been so offended in all my life. I will not have my character insulted by a checkout girl."
Yup, she genuinely said that. Janelle with a frustrated sigh. "OP, please just carry on with your shopping. I've got this from here." Me, "Thanks, hun. Good luck." And I went to leave, knowing that hanging around would have only further inflamed the situation. Janelle to Karen, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Karen started mouthing off at that, but I don't remember exactly what she said. It included something about my parents and getting Janelle fired, but I was out of there fairly quickly. I didn't see Karen again after that, and I don't know whether she left on her own accord, but I didn't hear of any huge commotion, so I'm guessing she eventually did. Must remember to contact the store and give Janelle's boss good feedback about how brilliantly she handled it all. Here's hoping I don't encounter that Karen again, but if I do, I'll be sure to tell you guys about it. What an absolutely absurd creature. Thank you so much for all the awards. Speaking of bread, what's your favorite kind of bread of all time? Please let us know.
French onion bread for the win.
Am I the jerk for yelling at my husband to stop eating my food? I'll keep this pretty cut and dry. I have a lot of food allergies, gluten intolerance, IBS, lactose intolerance. I'm allergic to spinach and kale and other leafy greens in that family. I buy special food for myself as well as regular food for my husband who does not have any allergies or food intolerances. For some reason, my husband likes to eat my snacks as well as his own. Instead of going to get a new loaf of bread, he'll open my gluten-free bread and eat all of it. It's been an issue our whole relationship. He says it's because he wants to use all the food before we go grocery shopping again, so nothing goes to waste. Now, I'm 13 weeks pregnant, and the amount of things I can eat are even less. Pretty much the only things I can keep down are these very specific gluten-free crackers that are like $8 a box, and bananas. Yesterday, I came home from my doctor's appointment and found out that he ate my whole brand new box of crackers. I had just gone grocery shopping, and we had plenty of food and snacks for him to eat. When I asked him why he decided to eat pretty much the only thing I can keep down, he said he just grabbed some crackers, and he didn't see the big deal, and that I was overreacting by being upset. He said he knows my pregnancy hormones are out of whack, but I needed to control myself. That made me angry, and I told him he needed to stop eating my food and making me feel bad for being upset, or he wouldn't have a wife anymore. He got really offended and hasn't spoken to me since, and I feel like I overreacted due to my pregnancy hormones. But I also feel like I am kind of valid in being frustrated by my husband who has no allergies eating all my specialty foods before I get any. Am I the jerk? He gets annoyed if I only buy things I can eat. He asks why he has to eat my diet when it's not him that has problems. My pregnancy was an accident. I guess my birth control failed or something else happened. It wasn't planned because we were working through issues, and I didn't want to bring a baby into the world during lockdown. Please stop telling me I was stupid for having a baby with him. I'm simply asking for judgments on the situation. Do you have any food intolerances? If so, what are they? Please let us know.
Anything with nuts and it's game over for me.
My final post, maybe. I finally got to say it. For starters, I'm afraid this may be my last post here. Late last year, I got a job teaching literacy that I love for an organization that treats me like a human being. Anyway, this happened during my final 2 weeks after giving notice at the hotel. You know those fantasy conversations you have where you get in an argument and you have the perfect response? I finally got to use one. I live near an Air Force base, so it's not uncommon for us to get airmen checking in late. Usually because they're too tanked up to drive past the base checkpoint. Typically they're nice, and I have nothing but respect for our servicemen in general. But a jerk is a jerk, whether in uniform or not. It's late at night and we're about full. All I have available are third-floor rooms. We're a small place and don't have elevators. An airman in uniform comes in reeking of booze and rejection and asks for a room. I tell him all I have is the third floor. I can tell he isn't listening, but he responds, "Whatever." So I check him in. A few minutes later, he comes back to the desk raising heck. He wants a first-floor room, and I'm dang well going to give it to him. Having lived here for a while, I knew from his insignia that he was an E2, basically an airman just out of basic. Most likely, he was out celebrating and wore his uniform to the bar, hoping to impress a local lady or two. Unfortunately for him, most of the women here know how to read rank too. Finally, it was time to use the response I'd been rehearsing since the first time I got chewed out by an airman for making him do stairs. I decide to play along. Me: "I'm sorry, sir. Just give me a moment to pull up your reservation." He smiles at me smugly. Me: "Okay, Airman Jerk, right?" He nods. Me: "And who's your first shirt?" U.S. Air Force lingo for first sergeant. Without thinking, he tells me. Then after a moment, he asks why. Me: "Well, I just wanted to know who to leave a message for to tell him that Airman Jerk doesn't like doing stairs and to make sure he doesn't make you do any while on base. What should I tell him when he asks why you chose to sleep here instead of in your rack?" The shade of white he turned looked green next to his pale blue shirt. Without a word, he turned sharply on his heel and I didn't hear from him for the rest of the night. And that may or may not be the last story I post here. If I ever do post again, it will be because some memory of my tenure as an NA bubbled to the service and will be largely paraphrased. I'll still stick around to read everyone else's stories though. Edit: it was only an idle threat. I'd really have to be upset to do anyone dirty like that. Luckily, I knew enough about the Air Force that it was a convincing one. Give me your dog, because I have anxiety. I have a large field across from my house with a track around it. The high school uses it for football practice, but people in the neighborhood are allowed to use it as well. Usually it's empty. I have a yellow lab greyhound shepherd mix. I've had her since I was very young, and I've grown up with her. She's a bit older now, but very healthy and still plays like a puppy. She's very sweet. So the weather outside was nice, and I decided to take my dog for a walk. I put her harness on and take her across the street. I always listened to music on my walks and didn't hear the entitled woman when she was calling at me. Eventually, I feel a slap to my shoulder, so I take my headphones off and I look at her. Me: "Yes?"
That's a nice dog. Is she good for emotional support?
Me: Yeah?
Where'd you get her?
Oh, my grandmother is a dispatcher, and a few years ago, a box of puppies was found at the side of the road. My grandma brought her home. All the puppies have been adopted and have grown up.
Well, can I buy yours then?
Excuse me?
I'll pay you $20.
Me: "No, she's mine, and she's not up for sale or adoption."
But I have anxiety. I need a service dog, and they're so expensive.
I'm assuming this isn't true. I'm not sure how to get a service dog. I'm just assuming she was lying for pity or something. I already said no. She's mine, and I'm not giving her up. Entitled lady, trying to snatch the lease away from me.
I need her.
Luckily, my neighbor was coming out for a walk. I've talked to her a lot, and she's very kind, and she knows what my dog looks like because sometimes we end up going for walks around the same time. Neighbor: "Hey OP, is there an issue?" Entitled lady:
Oh, thank goodness. This brat is trying to steal my dog.
I'm not sure how entitled lady thought this was going to work when neighbor clearly knew me. But anyway, neighbor: "That's not your dog. That's OP's dog. I've seen OP with her for years." The entitled lady gets all flustered and leaves. I waited a bit before going home because I didn't want entitled lady seeing where I lived, seeing as my house was right across the street from the track. Going above and beyond when a good deed for a guest came back to kick me in the face. I worked at the front desk of a 4-star hotel that kept one room for staff, room 101. It was used by employees for the bathroom, lunch, or a place to be so we weren't in the way of guests when on a break. The room was bare bones. Maintenance had taken things from it to replace broken items in other rooms. This room lacked a TV, lamps, and a dresser. The only lighting was from the bathroom. It was rarely used for guests, only in emergencies. One night around 11 p.m., a woman I'll call Karen came in. I explained that we were sold out and she broke down sobbing. She said she had just left her horrible husband and needed a place for the night as she was leaving in the AM to fly to her sister's. She was crying so hard, I felt bad. I decided to rent out room 101 to her. I went down to housekeeping, got her towels, some sheets and pillows, and even cut her rate, but I explained to her the rate was low because the room had no amenities. She thanked me profusely, and when she was gone, I felt good for helping her. A bit later, Karen asks if we can get her a TV. I say no and explain that we don't have a spare TV to give her. She then comes back asking if we can get her a lamp. I gave her the same speech, reminding her how I super reduced her rate due to the room missing things. She gets a little upset and says she can't see well enough to read. I didn't have anything going on, so I went to the maintenance room to look for a lamp, but came up empty. When I returned without one, she wasn't happy, but she said nothing. A few days later, the manager called me into her office. She had gotten a complaint about me, and guess what? It was that woman. She had written an email saying I insisted on giving her a low-level room that was missing all basic necessities. She said she wasn't told there was no lamp or TV, and that when she questioned me about it, I became rude and abrasive. She also said we had rooms available, but I refused to have housekeeping clean them. The guest said she demanded the low rate, but I gave in because I knew she was right. I denied everything, explained what really happened, and honestly, felt really bad. I bent over backwards for that woman, and she sent a letter filled with lies about me just to get $75 back. The only thing I had to prove my side of the story was the rate when I checked her in. Instead of charging her the regular rate and then lowering it when she confronted me, you could see she started with a discounted rate. It turned out to be the only thing that helped me keep my job. This manager had a customer is always right mentality and believed guests over employees every time. After that, I never went above and beyond again for a guest. No matter how pathetic they were, I had to worry it would come back to bite me. People suck. They make it hard to do nice things. Edit to add. This was nearly 20 years ago, before decent cameras were used in this hotel. If you're going to tell different stories to con staff members, make sure they're actually different people. I used to work in a little thrift store, basically half of a converted house. The other half housed the offices for the charity the store benefited. Mostly, we had very low prices, especially for clothing. We were lower than any of the other thrift stores in town. This was simply because we got so much clothing donated and had so little space to put it that it was more profitable to sell inexpensively as quickly as possible, and we set one price for each type of clothing. For example, all t-shirts were $1, so we didn't have to spend money or time tagging them. Which brings us to the lady with the $2 skirt. I was putting out clothes on the racks, aiming for our usual level of minimally disorganized, when this lady held up a long skirt to show me. I said something about it being very nice, and she said, "Well, I was just thinking about getting it because I have a pillow I want to recover, and if I went to a fabric store, this much fabric of this quality would probably cost me $18. I said something about that being quite clever and how lucky it was she found a skirt that she liked that had enough fabric, but I didn't think much of it and continued putting out the rest of the clothes I had. About 10 minutes later, when I'm going to the back to get some more clothes to put out, the lady who was sitting at the front desk taking money asked me if I would watch the desk for a couple minutes while she went to the bathroom. So I happened to be sitting there when the lady with the skirt walks up and sets it down. As I'm taking the hanger off, she says, "So, I was wondering if there's any flexibility on the price, because I'm just going to use the fabric, and it seems like a lot to just use some of the fabric." At first, I thought she was joking. Then I realized she really didn't recognize me as the person she had just spoken to and was quite serious. I just laughed and said, "Really? You just told me that this was at least $18 worth of fabric and what a great buy it was." There was a moment of stunned silence as she actually looked at me and realized that I was the same person. Then a rather defeated, "Oh." Death thinks it quite annoying when customers don't recognize that we may be mere servants to our feline overlords, but we still are people. Am I the jerk for hanging a photo of my family, including my boyfriend, in my apartment? My boyfriend, 32 male, recently moved into my 27 female apartment. We've been dating for a while, a little more than a year, and decided that it was time to make things serious. I have a daughter, 6, who also lives with me and visits her father every other weekend. I work in a quite demanding job, and my daughter used to either stay with my parents or be at a daycare while I worked. However, with the current state of the world, my boyfriend has been able to keep an eye on her mostly. I'm still in the house, but he's been doing stuff when I'm not able to, like checking what she's doing for school and making her lunch. She's also taken an interest in music, and my boyfriend used to be in a band his teenage years, and she's fascinated by that, and they spend a lot of time playing the guitar together. So they've gotten pretty close, and they are quite fond of each other. As my boyfriend has moved in, we've taken to redecorating a bit to make it our space, and I put a frame of the 3 of us, me, daughter, and boyfriend, in the living room. It's a sweet photo of a happy day that we are all fond of. There are other photos around the house with my boyfriend, and there's a few of my boyfriend teaching my daughter the guitar, stuff like that. I don't have any photos of my ex around the apartment, but in my daughter's room, we've hung photos of her and her dad. They were always there. My ex and I have a complicated history, but we are cordial now. The other day, when my ex came to pick up our daughter for the weekend, he noticed the changes in the pictures. I didn't really notice until later, but he left kind of mad. He then called me around midnight and ranted to me about how disrespectful it is to have a family-style photo with him not included in any of them, and how it's going to negatively affect our daughter's relationship with him, and that I'm purposely trying to alienate our daughter from him. Apparently, our daughter also has started talking about my boyfriend a lot in front of her father, and that rubbed him the wrong way. He wants me to remove the photos or add a photo with the 3 of us, him, me, and our kid. Both requests which I've refused. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or her ex? Please let us know. Update. My sister thinks $55 covers 2 months of babysitting. I spoke first to brother-in-law, who had no idea that she wasn't paying me, so he was the one to pay me back for the weeks I had already done. He wasn't very happy with my sister. I didn't watch them for this last week. I did talk to my sister first off about how disrespectful that was to make a deal and then go back on that deal, especially considering how ill-behaved her kids are. My sister told me that she didn't think it was a big deal because I was getting unemployment, and she assumed that because some people were getting unemployment and an additional $600 a week, that it didn't make any sense to pay extra to people on unemployment and not those working. So I was making bank either way. She assumed wrong. I was not getting $600 extra a week. I wasn't on unemployment. But it was a part of what happened with my former employer before I went to work for myself, that they're paying for my unemployment for their many labor law violations. My unemployment through them is almost up anyways. Either way, it was odd for her to assume I was making $900 a week off unemployment without asking me if I was. She and her brother-in-law had to switch around their shifts to watch their kids this week since I wouldn't show up. Brother-in-law said he'd pay me directly if she wasn't going to, and that's when it became a 3-way conversation. I let them know that their kids' behavior is really unacceptable, even for behaviorally challenged kids, which if they were, they'd be forced to have a child care provider licensed for dealing with it. That's not the case with their kids. They just let them get away with too much. Ironically, last week I saw a hot binge episode with a mother who had a kid who apparently told the babysitter to put him in his room, put up the gate if she were to not be in the room with him for any reason so he couldn't get out. And this kid was 10, and it got me thinking of my nephews. So I told them they need to install more security measures against the kids. A high-raised lock that the monkey can't reach, so he can't be running out the door. Removing anything that can be used as a weapon. Possibly a gate to lock one up in the room if they're misbehaving where there's nothing in there for them to break. I'm not watching them this week either, but I told them I might reconsider if something can be done to make watching them not like being a security guard at a prison. My sister didn't like my suggesting that they need to change their parenting, but my brother-in-law actually agreed. They had their argument, and he said this is why they can't get a babysitter or daycare for them anymore. They're out of control. Definitely knew that. And that they just keep coddling them through it. Definitely knew my sister was doing that. So there's a possibility I might watch them next week, if they have some sort of way to mitigate their behaviors that could actually work. But that's not a yes yet. They would need these ways to start disciplining their kids either way, or they'll just be releasing awful teens into the world. What would you do if you were in this situation? Would you continue babysitting these kids, even though they're so difficult to deal with?
Come watch this video next, you will love it. And please support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us record any special script you'd like us to, come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.